Right now, it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, should Prince George serve in the armed forces? Now, Prince George will reportedly not be expected to serve in the military before becoming king. Speaking ahead of the young prince's birthday, a long-time friend of William has said that the rules are different now and he wouldn't necessarily have to follow the old formula of going into the military and then royal life. Now, will breaking the tradition of members of the royal family serving in the army mean a new era for British royalty, with Prince Harry facing backlash for disclosing his kill count? I mean, what was he thinking in his book Spare? It was a disaster, that book. He shouldn't have bothered with it. Is it the right idea for front-facing royals to not be heavily involved in military combat? So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, what do you think? Should Prince George serve in the armed forces? I'm joined now to discuss Martin Daubney, GB News contributor and former MEP, Peter Edwards, former editor of The Labour List, Will Geddes, defence and security expert, and Michael Cole, former BBC royal correspondent. I'm going to start with you, Michael Cole. It would be potentially breaking years and years and years of tradition.
A pound to a penny, Nana. Prince George will serve in the armed forces in due course. Of course, his parents will consult him, and of course they'll give him a choice, but he will, because in due course, if history takes its proper course, he will become King George VII, and it would be unthinkable as the commander-in-chief of our armed forces had he not worn the uniform of his own country. So this story, based upon the word of an anonymous friend of Prince William, has been seriously overcooked. I know the charming and excellent journalist who wrote it, but it has been overcooked. There's no way he won't serve in the armed forces. The last king to lead Britain in battle was King George II, his namesake, in 1743 at the Battle of Dettingen against the French. It hasn't happened since, but there's been a long history. His great-grandfather, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, he served in the Second World War. He was mentioned twice in dispatches, and he said to me once in an interview that the armed forces give the royal princes a safe place to be. If they were in the commercial world, if they worked for this Ford company, then General Motors would complain that it was unfair competition.
Actually, you make a good point.
Keep them out of the commercial world in a safe place where they can be guarded to some extent from the intrusions of the media. So it's an interesting story, but not worth putting on the front page.
I think you make a good point. And actually, what would they do? As we've seen in the case of Prince Harry, he doesn't know what he's doing. Let's go to Will Geddes. Will Geddes.
Hi, Nana. Well, I kind of follow really what Michael's saying there. I think it would be sad if he didn't take an active role, certainly as he will be king one day as the commander-in-chief, and he hasn't actually experienced it. You know, we have three branches. We've got the British Army, the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force. And the British Army and the Royal Air Force have to pledge allegiance to the sovereign. The only one that doesn't is the Royal Navy, because it was formed by the monarchy and not by Parliament. So I'm sure his parents are going to give him an option. It's not going to be forced on him. And for many of the royal family members, it is a ceremonial title. They may be named as the head of a particular unit or a particular branch of the military. But fundamentally, I'm sure he will want to follow in his father's footsteps and in his grandfather's footsteps as well, and those before.
Do you think, maybe he's not the fighting type, but anyway, I think that they cause more trouble when they're in those positions than out. Let's go to Peter Edwards.
I don't know if they cause more trouble.
No, they do, because by that I mean, if you imagine all the people who had to protect Prince Harry when he went into combat were risking their lives. I mean, only for him to expose them later. But I mean, you know, it just seems a bit. I'd rather they weren't in there. That way, the others wouldn't put their lives at risk. But what do you think, Peter?
Well, anyone, and I hate this phrase, but anyone who's a kind of VIP or very, very important person will attract their attention. The army's got to be able to look after its comrades. But I think it's right that the prince is an adult, and he's just a little boy at the moment, we've got to remember, still at primary school, can make his own choices in life. But as Michael Cole rightly said, the case for serving in the army, apart from patriotism and swearing the oath and everything else, is, as he says, it gives a prince or princess a chance to grow up privately. 18, 19, 20 is still young, is still working out your way in life, away from media intrusion. But it also allows you to have a boss. And the royal family don't have a boss like the rest of us in their life. But in any of the services, they'll have someone more senior telling them what to do every day. So it is a taste of normality. So I think there's something to be said for it. But, we're talking about a little boy. Who could be against the idea that he chooses his own way in life?
Martin.
The military legitimises the royal family. It gives them a sense of purpose and it gives them a sense of honour. And I think in terms of public perception, let's not forget, even Prince Harry was at his most popular when he was in Afghanistan. And Prince William, when he was flying the helicopter, people respected that, they admired that, and it gives them a sense of purpose between adulthood and then their role in the monarchy. If George's role is in the private sector, then disaster awaits, because there'll be all sorts of accusations of his royal patronage being applied to the private sector. He'll be much more likely to get damaged as a brand, as an individual, and the royal family as an institution if he goes into the private sector with all of the kind of affiliated risks of favouritism, of abuse of title. Actually, the military is a far safer place for a fledgling, budding monarch than the private sector. And I think it sends a real negative message out about the future of our armed services too. They're already beleaguered, their funding is cut, and I think they need a figurehead. And the second in line to the throne should be that figurehead.
But so you all agree? I mean, listen, I don't see why he should have to do that, personally. I mean, but I get it that he's got nowhere else to go. Will, is it a security risk then for him to do anything else at that point in his life anyway?
Yeah, I'd agree with the rest of the panel on that. I think outside of the confines of the military, and again, drawing on many of the points all the other guests have mentioned, he will learn a sense of discipline, both self-discipline, but also reporting to others, which, other than obviously his father and his family, he won't necessarily be in a position where he has to fall in line with fellow members of his unit or his regiment, wherever he is assigned. So whilst he's there, you have a number of other individuals who are also going to be armed, who are going to be combatants, are going to be fit, are going to be trained. You couldn't be in a more secure environment being amongst his fellow troops than he would be in the private sector. So, to be honest, if you wanted him to be safe, it's probably the safest place, despite the fact that he may, as his father has, as his uncle has, and other members of the family, serving obviously in hostile risk environments.
Well, I think, if they all agree, that's fair enough. Martin Daubney, thank you very much. GB News contributor and former MEP. Also, Peter Edwards, former editor of The Labour List. Will Geddes, he's a defence and security expert. And Michael Cole, former BBC Royal correspondent. Thank you for your thoughts.